Alright, hello and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Tonight we're going to be continuing where we left off after quite a bit of investigation, actually. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is our last one for a little bit. If this is our last one before we go into the case, I mean. Alright, it's relieved you're alright. Let's have some tea and let's relax a bit. Yeah, we need to speak with Iris about why she immediately left a little while ago. Wait, the dog needs out? Give me just a moment, please. Alright, I'll need to let them back in a bit, but for now...
Mit dem Schwarzbiergebot, Bodend Wien, Feuerberg, den Schlund es
Wait, what?
verbrannt, ach Hopfen dein
What on earth is going on in here? Am I having a bad dream?
mit dem Knacker ich befahl.
I know it's an old German folk song, a rather fine rendition, I think. That's the least of my concerns. I was thinking, did I accidentally leave YouTube open or something? Iris? Iris, what's the matter? Alright, we have, additional questions we're going to need to be asking Iris. Who is that sprawling? I mean, relaxed gentleman over there? That's your father, silly. Iris, is she even listening? Excuse me, sir, I do apologize for troubling you while you're singing so merrily, but would you be kind enough to explain the situation? This is, completely, well, that worked. A crooning gentleman and a mute-toned girl, a rather tantalizing juxtaposition. And one that appears to have incited the gods of deduction within me to find their voices as well. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, I guess we hadn't done one of this case yet. We were overdue. The strains of reasoning within me are playing now as a delightful duet. One melody sings of a reunion full of nostalgia, while the other is a morose theme about a great secret you're trying so desperately to conceal, Iris. She's turned as white as a sheet. So as usual, you've instantly seen the very heart of the matter. And by the time my own brief performance is over, I am sure this gentleman's song will reach its finale. What are you barking at, puppy? One moment, please. Honestly, I'm surprised the little one would want to go out to bark so badly when it's so cold out. Pretty sure they'll be back in momentarily, so we can worry about that in a bit. So then, to Music Land, where all is sweetness and delicacy and harmony. Pray do enjoy Sherlock Holmes' latest logic and reasoning spectacular. The Great Deduction. Oh neat, it even has his lack of hat this time. The man's identity. It's obviously Eugen, but... Firstly, we consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly, he's a German with no grasp of the English language. As evidenced by the Germanic song he sings, an apparent inability to understand when to desist. So why is the man here at all in such apparently high spirits? It's obviously playing in the background there from that gramophone. That's, of course, Iris is known to you. Indeed, we need only follow the gaze of those bright young eyes to unravel this particular part of the mystery. The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by this herbal tea. You obviously offered our German guest a cup of your latest herbal blend. The tea's delectable flavor has made a man's spirits soar, and resulted in this joyful ditty tumbling incessantly from his lips, and I eagerly await sampling the flavor myself, that I may join the fellow in this state of elation. Now the next question. Who exactly is this gentleman availing himself so thoroughly of the settee? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin did engage my services solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that might have proved problematic. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived at my office in a mask. The gentleman's name was Ormstein. Oh, that was the young witness from that other case, the King of Germany. It's his father. Now, if memory serves, the mask worn by this German man is identical. Yes, there can be no question, it belongs to the King of Germany. It appears Majesty remembers the fine service I afforded him and has decided to show his face again, mask and all, in order to express his gratitude. A well-mannered monarch indeed, would you agree, my dear fellow? Iris in the background. So the identity of this masked visitor is in fact my former client, the King of Germany. Indeed, sorry. Currently in London as well, enjoying the wonders of the Great Exhibition. Okay, yeah, they were bringing that up. Yeah, I couldn't remember if at this point in history Germany proper had come to exist or if it was still the Prussian Empire, because it was comparatively more recent, but I guess it must have happened already by this point. I forgot to look that up, but then again, that was one of the many things I was thinking about to last stream, but never... Well, no, that wasn't one of them, I mean. I had a lot of things on my mind then, but that wasn't one of the major ones, I guess. Oh well. But your apparent inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside the knapsack. £5 note, I believe. I must say, as your compatriot, I am deeply saddened. It would appear that you've allowed yourself to be bribed and silenced by His Royal Highness, earning yourself some spending money in exchange for keeping the king's secret. And now, the final piece of the puzzle. What is the secret you tried to hide with your silence, Iris? Ah yes, we need only follow that brief involuntary twitch of your eyes to find the answer. You're attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. My favorite coffee cup, in fact. I say, that handle of my favorite coffee cup. It appears that His High Spirit Highness broke it in the midst of his hijinks. Which leads us to the sad truth. My favorite coffee cup has been broken by the King of Germany, and you, Iris, tried to conceal it from me. I shall have a bill sent via governmental channels to the German royal family for its replacement. The girl's silence to hide the coffee cup. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this painful puzzle. Oh, I need to let the dogs in. Give me just a moment, please.
Den Schlund es mir verbrannt, ach Hopfen deine Wut. Herr mit dem Knacker ich befahl, hat wie ein Diamant den Zahn entzwei es brach.
Well, I must say, I was not expecting to open up the game tonight and immediately be presented with something this bizarre, that's for sure. Oh, with your silence as well, the fellow's jovial warbling song rings in the ears, does it not? Ha. Mr. Sholmes, I must say something does rather trouble me. Pray, Mrs. Otto, do tell. His Royal Highness, doesn't appear to have moved a muscle since we arrived. And you haven't said a word either, Iris. Mr. Sholmes has it right, you might as well own up to it now. Yeah, he overthought things again. Your reasoning is entirely without substance, I must admit. And, one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Yet another grievance, Mr. Naruto? Surely not. Well, I actually read the story of that case recently, the one you were just describing, and according to that at least, it wasn't the King of Germany, it was the King of Bohemia. Oh goodness, was it? Yes, that's quite true. Master Gotz the Prince testified to that as court as well. His words, I have come to see the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia. Don't worry, I'm sure he'll let you listen to their rhapsody. I would ask that you keep the minor error to yourselves. It could be, we could easily become quite the scandal. I believe, Mr. Naruhodo, that it's our turn now to make some corrections to a number of minor errors that may have slipped in. Yes, even Mr. Sholmes is willing to admit he might be slightly wide of the mark this time. Although it's clear Iris is definitely hiding something. Time to find out the truth behind this mysterious scene. But the truth is incontrovertible. My favorite coffee cup is no more. So, shall we embark again on a presentation of Sherlock Holmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular? And the katana's gone. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. Conclusion, the King of Germany. Firstly, we consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly he's a German with no grasp of the English language. As evidenced by the Germanic song, he sings an apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So why is the man here at all, and such apparently high spirits? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. Indeed, we need only follow the gaze of those bright young eyes to unravel the particular part of this mystery. The reason for the man's mildly irritatory is revealed by the herbal tea. Yeah, I know it's not that. So what, some mix of herbs that gives you the urge to sing? Goodness, I should like to try some. I'd like to hear your singing, but this man, how long does he intend to keep up with that tune, do you suppose? As I said, he's been stock still the entire time. And if you look closely, his lips aren't moving either. Ah. So I'm not sure what's actually responsible for the spirited singing, but suggest the answer lies at the end of her gaze. Yeah, I know what this is myself, so... Gramophone. Wait, this is a gramophone, still rarely seen in our own country. The sound certainly appears to be coming from the horn, but machines singing, that can't be right. Science and technology are changing the world rapidly, Mr. Naruhodo. What's right is changing too. It's too much for my brain. Well, at least we found our answer.
Take that!
Revealed by the gramophone. The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the gramophone. Indeed, for no well-bred gentleman could break into an obscure folk song making a social call. In other words, this man's gentleman isn't singing at all. In fact, it would appear that the fellow is unconscious. Ah, the music seems to have stopped now. I ask you, Mr. Naruhodo, why would I have purchased a recording of that strange gibberish? How should I know? Well, never mind on with the deduction. Who exactly the gentleman availed himself so thoroughly of the SETI? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin engaged my services involving a particularly delicate case. It required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that might have proved problematic. Oh, it's the papers. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived in my office with a mask. The gentleman's name was Wilhelm, the King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by this gentleman is identical. Yes, there can be no question. This mask belongs to the King of Germany. Although we've already established that it was actually the King of Bohemia, it seems Mr. Sholmes intends to persist with his Germany theory for some reason. Come to think of it, the young prince was wearing a mask as well, wasn't he? Master Gotz, the boy whom you had in tears? Don't remind me, or anyone else, please. Do you suppose all members of the aristocracy of mainland Europe wear masks? I'm sure they do. Well, probably anyway. Yeah. Well, I'm sure, or I can think of a few that would have a reason to do that. Well, the point is, that mask doesn't belong to any king. No, that's right, as we well know, because we can identify the true owner of this mask. Cosma.
Take that!
So cute. Yes, there can be no question. That mask belongs to Cosma Sogi. Ah, in other words, my memory is sublimely unreliable. Only you could try and make that sound like a positive. Cosmo's mask has been languishing on this metal chest for several days, although that doesn't explain why the gentleman's wearing it now. It is now a simple matter to determine our guest's true identity. After all, the gentleman's unconscious. We need only excuse ourselves in advance and gently lift the mask. I don't believe it. Ah! Father! I'm afraid, Mr. Zato, you must be Mr. No, I think not, Mr. Sholmes. Then it would appear our logic and reasoning has once again revealed the truth. This mysterious visitor is my unconscious father, Eugene Mikutaba. Logic and reasoning are just looking and saying. Okay, that's an amazing photo to end it on. The chemistry between these characters is absolutely amazing. Even now, we have good reason to be suspect of both Sholmes and Iris for the missing autopsy report, but even still, they're just so entertaining. Which leaves us with one remaining, yet imponderable. Yes, you, young Iris. But your apparently inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed within that knapsack? So that's a 5-pound note poking out from Iris's knapsack, isn't it? Oh dear, I can't be sure. Most money that we encounter is in coin form. I know, I'm not even sure if we've seen any banknotes here in Britain at all, have we? But anyway, Father would never pay money for Iris's silence. He certainly seems like the silent type himself, though, judging by his present state. There must be some other reason for Iris's silence, I suppose. Perhaps what Iris is trying not to give away with her eyes is something entirely different. Version slipper. We might as well examine this while we're here. The slipper features in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes, doesn't it? It does. When I first saw it here on the mantelpiece, I nearly fainted with excitement. Doesn't Iris keep her 11Zs in there? Yes, that part was never mentioned in the stories. We could swap it for the Japanese equivalent of a slipper for fun. In other words, for a wooden Gaeta sandal. But then it wouldn't be possible to hide anything inside of it. Which matters because... let's take a closer look at the knapsack first. Now that I think about it, Iris always wears that little bag on her back, doesn't she? Yes, that's right. Although it's easy to forget about it because you can't see it from the front. There are two little felt dolls attached to it as well. Are there? I had no idea. I don't remember ever seeing them before. Is it possible there's always a 5-pound note sticking out of her bag that I just haven't noticed before, too? I couldn't say with absolute certainty, but I do think it's unlikely. Metal chest. This metal chest, it contains important documents, doesn't it? Ooh, it's unlocked! Yes, details of all the cases Mr. Sholmes worked on over the years, written up by Iris's father, if I'm not remembering correctly. Iris insists the chest is kept locked at all times. She's never once shown me inside. Well, its contents are invaluable to her, I suppose. And entirely irreplaceable. But look at it now. The latch is unlocked for once. Ah, so it is. That's hard to ignore. Very. I've never seen the chest unlocked before in all the time we've been staying here at Baker Street.
Take that!
Concealed inside the metal chest. Yes, the real reason for your muteness is concealed inside that metal chest. An excellent observation for upon closer inspection. There's something different about the chest's appearance. It's kept locked at all times, yet now the catch is open. Evidently, this has something to do with your refusal to speak, Iris. It's a simple enough matter to incite you to speak, I'm sure. I merely need to open this chest. Here we go. No! Hurley, don't! Well, that explains, everything. Mr. Sholmes! Hurley! Well, that, explains... He's dead. Never! Oh, Hurley, I told you not to open it. Ah, so you found your voice now, Iris. Ah! In other words, what just happened clearly reveals the truth here. Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is... This is somewhat different from the usual dance of deduction you perform for Mr. Sholmes, isn't it? Well, he's left me alone on the ballroom floor, so I'm gonna have to dance this next part solo. And anyway, I need to get to the bottom of this for my own peace of mind. Now then, Iris isn't usually the silent type, so... I mean, you don't actually know the answer yet, despite knowing the point of the finger before. Miss Susato, sometimes a man needs to point his finger first and think later. Oh, well, if you say so. I think we'd better examine Iris a little more closely to rescue the situation, then. Ah, that's a key she is holding. Look, I'm sure that wasn't in her hands before, was it? No, you're quite right. It's appeared as if by magic. That's strange, a big old iron key. Where did it materialize from? Oh yeah, the knapsack. And look, those are the felt ones that mentioned before. One, I think that's a mouse, and I think that's obviously a rabbit. I guess to represent Sholmes and herself. For some reason, this knapsack is really standing out suspicious to me today. Is it? It's quite sizable enough for a sizable secret, that's what I say. Perhaps it is, but we certainly can't open it up to look in without Iris's permission. No, you're right. Who knows what might pop out and punch us.
Take that!
Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is that key hidden behind your back. Ah! When Mr. Sholmes was thrown in the air before... Just before he called out to stop him, you slipped something out of your mouth. That something is the key that's now in your hands. No doubt the key to the chest. You're so clever, Runo. So now it becomes clear, thanks to Mr. Sholmes' graphic demonstration, we can well imagine what happened here. But... Professor Mikitaba also opened up that metal chest only to be punched in the air. And landed sprawled on the settee. Oh, but wait, that doesn't explain all the facts. What about the stylish scarf, the cup of tea, and above all, why would he be wearing Kazuma's mask? Well, for those curious details, I can think of only one explanation. Clearly an unbelievable miracle took place in this room. Isn't that right, Iris? Consider how the room was arranged before this whole painful experience took place. Professor Mikitaba opened the chest, completely unaware of what awaited him inside. The mask was flung into the air just as he was, only to land neatly on his face when it fell back down. And a teacup's journey through the air ended when it got caught in the unconscious professor's finger. You mean to say the stylish scarf is actually just a tablecloth? Yes. This is the great detective's office, after all, a place of miraculous deductions. Oh, would you expect anything less? Yes, you're right. It happened exactly as you said. Brilliant, Runo. Thus concludes Ryunosuke Naruhodo's great deduction of this punchy puzzle. So then, why don't I make a fresh pot of tea for us all?
Objection!
An admirable... oh, this time Sholmes gets an objection. An admirable performance, Mr. Naruhodo. But in the final act of the show here, you rather missed everything of importance. Mr. Sholmes? If you cast back your mind to my earlier deduction, Iris, clearly you're hiding a great secret. Ah. She is? From the look on her face. Mr. Sholmes must be right. Whatever that great secret is, the cat isn't out of the bag quite yet. That's why she was so quick to try and ask everyone to go to tea. So I put it to you again. You're attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. It really is a shame about Mr. Sholmes' cup. It must have been smashed when Professor Mikotaba opened the chest. Oh dear, so many things seem to have been broken here. Now the abduction's taken a different direction. Iris doesn't seem to be trying to hide the broken cup anymore. In other words, her great secret is something else. Let's put our observational skills to work here one final time then. Oh, I was gonna say the plate itself, but no, it's something underneath it. Ah, look there. There seems to be more papers here. Is Iris trying to hide them underneath the tray? The insignia, Mr. Naruhodo. That's the official Scotland Yard document. Wait, but why would Iris... We must ask her. An official Scotland Yard document.
Take that!
You were attempting to abscond with that case file. Iris, as you know very well, nothing escaped the attention of the great detective. Oh no. So it wasn't Mr. Sholmes who took it, it was Iris? But that doesn't make sense. It would make We visited Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory earlier today, and Dr. Gorey informed us the autopsy report of Clint von Zeeks had gone missing. Clint von Zeeks? Yeah, I do seem to recall. As some years ago, I had asked to see the report in question. You were with me, weren't you, Iris? You mean it was you, Iris? Those papers you have there are... I'm sorry. Forgive me. The girl's silence to hide the case file. Deduction complete. Elementary. So even Sholmes was unaware about it. At the time, that is. In truth, I would like to have thought I could have predicted the booby-trapped chest. But it caught me completely off guard. I was very nearly the late consulting Detective Herlock Sholmes. I'm sorry, Hurley. So you mean the autopsy report really is... Yes, I took it from the lab, even though I knew it was very important. Was there something in that troubled you, Iris? In it that troubled you, Iris? Not exactly something that troubled me. Something I've been looking for. When I saw this report, when I saw the writing in it, I knew it was Daddy's. The writing? Your father's writing? What do you mean? Really mean? Iris? It must be something that's hard for her to talk about. Forgive me for interrupting, my dear fellows. Mr. Sholmes, what is it? I feel as though the poor unconscious gentleman in the SETI has been somewhat forgotten. Ah, father! Perhaps we should find our guest somewhere more peaceful to rest. Mr. Naruhodo, yes. Would you be so kind as to lend him your bed? We must do our very best to make him comfortable, I feel. Oh, yes, of course. I'll help you carry him up. So will I. No, I can manage alone, thank you. You have tea to enjoy. We wouldn't want Iris's brew to stew. Because there's no better way to make the professor comfortable than dragging him upstairs like a trunk. I wonder, perhaps that was deliberate. Maybe Mr. Sholmes is making himself scarce to give Iris the chance to talk more freely. I was about to say that, but... Well, the game's been ahead of me so far, and this is definitely another example of it. We must use this opportunity to talk with Iris and find out what's going on. Your father. Would you like to tell us about it, Iris? About your father? I'm sure I told you before, didn't I? That Daddy used to be Hurley's partner. Yes, and that notes about all the cases they solved together are kept inside that metal chest. That's right. Hurley told me, you see. He said that Daddy's somewhere far away now, so we can't meet. That's one way of describing it, that's for sure. Then, when I secretly unlocked the chest and read through the papers inside, I started to build a picture in my head of what Daddy must be like. Well, that's only natural. You're just like any other girl of your age. Ah, that's right, because like Iris here, her Susato's father was missing for most of her life until she was a teenager, in fact. I read that Daddy was a professor of medical science, so I studied and took my degree too. Oh well, that's only natural, I suppose. In that respect, you're not quite like any other girl of your age, though. Oh, but there was one thing that I could never find out. Daddy's name. His name wasn't anywhere on any of the notes he'd made about his work with Hurley. But then one day... That's what happened, is it? When you saw this autopsy report, you finally managed to work it out. Is that right? Yes. So it was the handwriting in the report that caught her eye. When I saw the writing on that report, I could hardly believe it. I know that handwriting, I thought to myself. Because it was the same as the writing you'd seen on your father's case notes. Exactly. I was desperate to compare the two properly. I needed to see them side by side. I asked the doctor in the laboratory, but I was told I couldn't take the report away. And even worse, I was told that it was the first and last time we'd been allowed to even look at there. So you decided to steal it. When I compared the autopsy report with the case notes I had here, there was no doubt. The handwriting was exactly the same. It was Daddy's. And the signature of the coroner at the bottom of the autopsy report read Dr. John H. Wilson. That's how I finally found out. I learned Daddy's name at last. I see. Ever since then, I've called myself Iris Wilson. Also, when I had the brilliant idea of writing stories all about Daddy's exciting times with Hurley. I decided there and then I'd write the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Oh, Iris, I had no idea the stories had quite such a deep personal significance for you. So as her way of coping with the fact he was never there, she decided to live through his adventures. You can see why the autopsy report was so important to her now. And why she was prepared to break the law to get her hands on it. I must apologize, Iris. This is really all my fault. Really? I made a promise, you see, that until the time was right, I'd keep the details about your father a secret. I know, I've been very naughty. I'll take the autopsy report back to Dr. Gorey and apologize, I promise. Yes, we'll go together, I think. Oh, then let me look after it for you until we get there. Clint's autopsy report. Absolutely important. This is probably going to be our biggest clue to this entire case. I'm just going to water my herbs, I think. I'll see you all later. Poor Iris. She must be feeling awful. I know Mr. Sholmes is here for her, but still. Ah! What? How? What's the meaning of this, Mr. Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes? Oh dear me. So, you've noticed, I see. Clint von Zieks. He died somewhere between 9 p.m. and midnight. Whatever's on here, we need to make. Observation. Death from a single stab wound to the heart, other superficial extended wounds indicative of a duel. Scarlet ink stains visible on the Lidland ring fingers of the right hand, but no document in corresponding ink was found. Autopsy findings. Vital evidence recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy. Credit Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly. No internal trauma noted anywhere in the body. It doesn't mention what is in there during that was found in there. You notice, I see. Oh, but that would mean... What on earth's the matter, Miss Susato? You've turned as white as a sheet. It's this autopsy report, Mr. Naruhodo. One from 10 years ago. The writing isn't Dr. Wilson's at all. What do you mean? How could you possibly know that? Because I know this writing very well. Wait a minute. This writing, it's my father's. What? Professor Mikotaba's? Indeed, it is true. And now you know, my dear fellows. No, I don't know anything. What on earth does this mean, Mr. Sholmes? Because the idea that's slowly forming in my mind, it's too extraordinary to believe. Please, you have to explain. The autopsy report writing. So, this autopsy report was actually penned by Professor Mikotaba, then? But that makes no sense. It's not possible, surely. Not possible, my dear fellow. Pray, take a deep breath and think again. Yes, you're right. In some ways, it actually makes a great deal of sense. It does. 10 years ago is when Father returned to Japan after his extended study tour in Britain. And prior to his return, where was Dr. Mikotaba engaged? Of course, he was assistant in Dr. Wilson's laboratory learning about forensic science. And as an assistant, he would have aided with the dissection work, making detailed notes, which would be assembled into a full autopsy report. Once work was complete, the head coroner would check the contents and put his signature on the document. In other words, the only writing of Dr. Wilson's in the report would be his signature at the end. So Iris got the wrong end of the stick, you mean? She saw that and assumed the whole report had been written by Dr. John Wilson. Which is very understandable, of course. What a complicated situation. It was Sign who carried out the procedure, though Mikotaba actually penned the report. Your partner. Alright, so thinking about it, most of what we know about you, Mr. Sholmes, comes from the published stories of your exploits. Yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, written by Iris. And we really have no way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. Exactly. Iris openly admitted at some points that she changes some details to fit a story better. Most troubling you for you, my dear fellow, I'm sure. So what about the supposed partner of yours? Did he really exist or not? Ah, you come straight to the point, I see. Yeah, that's a straightforward question without being a loaded question. Alright, please come straight to the answer. I believe Iris explained in one of her installments. He was a trusted comrade and the only person I could truly have called a friend. And did this partner of yours truly make a record of all your cases? Are his notes really stored inside that metal chest? Absolutely, my dear madam, absolutely. So, where is your partner right now? We rarely meet. You see, he lives on the other side of the world. But if the autopsy report and the records of all your old cases were penned by the same hand, and if the autopsy report was written, though not signed, by your famous partner, there would only be one logical conclusion. Pray, impress me. Your partner would have to be Yujin Mikotaba. In other words, Miss Susato's father. On my word, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. You're coming along wonderfully. You have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. You mean to say? Allow me to introduce you to my great friend and partner, Mikotaba. Professor Mikotaba. Sholmes and Mikotaba. Does this mean that you're the real Dr. Wilson? No, my dear. I'm still my old self, Eugene Mikotaba, your father. Oh, of course. Well, this is obviously too much for Susato to take in at once. I must say, though, while my old friend was attuned with worldwide celebrity. My old friend was attained worldwide celebrity status as a great mystery solver was the greatest mystery of all. Still remember the first time we met? Ah, pray remind me, when was it again, Mikotaba? 16 years ago, Sholmes. Ah, yes, quite. 16 years ago. I just arrived from Japan with Seshiro and Genshin. I was in search of lodgings close to the hospital, some comfortable room at a reasonable price. But rents are devilishly high in that particular area. That's right, so I decided I needed someone to share lodgings and the expense with, and was fortunate enough to be introduced to Sholmes, who found himself in a similar situation. I was a hello fellow back then, a mere shadow of the great detective you see now. I was working at the hospital's chemical laboratory at the time, indulging my curiosities for a little gain. I need to grab a drink here. Give me just a moment, please. So Sholmes worked at the hospital's chemical laboratory before he became a detective. And the situation of our cohabitation led to us pursuing cases together, you see. Hard to believe it was a mere 6 years. We had a great many adventures. But in the last year of Mikotaba's stay in Britain, that most infamous of cases presented itself. The case with which you become rather familiar yourselves, the Professor killings. After the trial, Seshiro and I were summoned back home. Hardly surprising, given the circumstances. So there you have it. As you know, all the details recorded by my trusty chronicler remain in that metal chest. It's just amazing. Professor Mikotaba really is Mr. Sholmes' famous partner. Father. Oh, goodness, my dear. What a cutting look. As your daughter, I'm very proud to learn you are the great detective's great partner. But nevertheless, there's another mystery that I really must ask you to explain now. And that is? You know very well what it is. The unresolved matter of Iris's father. Oh, of course, I'd almost forgotten about that one. I should have seen this coming, I suppose. Iris's true father. Iris told us. All the notes about the great detective's adventures are all in that metal chest. Were written by her father. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sholmes? That is indeed what I told young Iris. But if you're Mr. Sholmes' partner, father, and you wrote all those case notes, then Iris's father must be you. Oh. Well, Sholmes only said that's what he told Iris. Upon my word, Miss Susato. You're coming along wonderfully as well. You two have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. What? What you've always told me, father, is that my mother died when I was born 16 years ago, and you left me with grandmother's care whilst you embarked on your study tour of Britain, and I've always accepted that. But all this about Iris. Oh, there it is, Susato's ice-cold stare. Now, hold on a minute. It was very complicated. I mean, it's really not what you think. Perhaps you could explain exactly what it is. Oh, there it is. Now the eyes go from ice-cold to red-hot just before she... No, really got the wrong end of the stick. Sholmes, say something. Come on. That's quite enough, my fiery fellows. Mr. Sholmes, when did he get all dressed up? Whilst I don't like to interrupt this exciting exploration of the past, Mikotaba and I have an urgent matter that requires a short excursion. But it's very late, Mr. Sholmes. Where must you go? Why, my dear madam, is that not obvious? My partner and I must pursue our natural enemies. So get your coat, Mikotaba. The game is afoot. But Sholmes, I really must give Susato a full explanation, I think. Later, my dear fellow, later. Our carriage awaits downstairs already. He wants to solve something one last time. You haven't changed one iota, have you? I mean, really, I visit our home after 10 long years. When I open that chest in a fit of nostalgia, I quite inexplicably pass out. And as if that wasn't enough, when I eventually regain consciousness, I plunge straight into all this. Father, please. Go with Mr. Sholmes now. What? I have no doubt that whatever happened, you were acting in everyone's best interests. I trust you completely. Susato. And sending the great detective and his great partner off on renewed adventures together is more than I could hope for in my wildest dreams. Very well, then we'll speak again later. So, I believe your own work is done for the day? I wish you the best of luck for tomorrow. Yes, Naruto, good luck in battle. And in reaching a decision. Oh, about whether to go back to Japan, I suppose.
So much happened that day that I barely knew what to do with myself. It would only be later that I'd come to realize how amidst the chaos I'd unleashed were all the clues I needed to finally unearth the truth, and that all the turmoil was necessary to give me the resolve to see everything through.
Wait, what? End? Achievement unlocked, legendary pair. Yeah, that's the end of chapter 4. Alright, we're gonna save now. Final resolve of Ryanosuke Naruhodo. Alright, in that case, I get the sense this chapter will be pretty much 100% court case then. Third of November, 9:14 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. I don't remember a case in these games ever taking 2 whole chapters to complete. Dang. Okay, so the time's finally come. Today we unravel everything. I'll be counting on your support more than ever today, Miss Susato. Miss Susato? Slam. Oh no, what's the matter, Miss Naruhodo? Nothing. I was just saying that I'll be relying on your support today, but... I'm so sorry, of course. I know I can be rather incompetent at times, but... I shan't let you down. Would you mind helping me to my feet, then? Oh, dear, I'm really sorry. Suzato-san isn't her usual self at all, but that's hardly surprising, I suppose. She just found out her father is the partner of a world-famous detective, not to mention... Ah, good morning, sir. Ah, Lord Van Zeeks. Thank you for all your efforts yesterday. Did I hear that correctly? What? Oh, nothing. I hope we can clear things up today. I really can't make this man out. His face says I hate you, but his words are almost jovial today. Yeah, he's a bit stoic, it seems. In fact, he hasn't been very Reaper-like at all since all this began yesterday. Ix isn't the Reaper, Mr. Naruhodo. Good point. In fact, we now know who it truly is. The Reaper, I suppose in hindsight, I shouldn't have allowed that misconception to go unchallenged. Huh? It was my tacit acceptance of that pseudonym. My failure stopped the Reaper becoming something more than a legend that led to all of this. But you're not to blame for that, Lord Van Zykes. It's only because a serious crime in the capital dropped off so sharply when the public started calling you that. That's why you didn't say anything, isn't it? Too bit for... Like, I'm not sure that was the sole reason. What do you mean? There was a rumor at the time that the Reaper was really the ghost of my late brother. And that having been slain by the evil killer, Clint's restless spirits returned as some sort of demigod. To wield a deadly blade of justice where I, by dint of the law, could not. Yeah, we've heard that story as well. When I lost him, I felt as though I'd lost my guiding light. I did not know where to go or what to do, and so, in some small way, I wonder if perhaps those rumors made me feel his absence a little less keenly. So you in a way, you like the title because it gave him the idea that his brother's still watching over him. Yeah, but if I knew it was just an illusion, just some nonsense conjured up by an over-imaginative public, It was obviously extremely important to you. Clint von Zieks. Well, what's important now is uncovering the truth. That's all that matters. I know you didn't take anyone's life, and I intend to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt in court today. I never thought I'd say this, but I can see in your eyes that burning desire to cut through all the lies and deception. I can't deny it any longer. You are a lawyer of absolute integrity. Thank you. Now tell me, why do I detect the scent of expensive tea leaves in the air? Oh, Iris, when did you get here? Oh. I brought you some of my special blends. Hurley loves it. He says it helps him clear his head. Thank you. Oh, That's surely the first and last time I'll ever see a sight like this. You seem different today, Iris. Oh, sort of subdued, I suppose. I am not. What happened yesterday is obviously still playing at her mind a lot. She's clearly very troubled about having stolen that autopsy report from Dr. Scythe's laboratory. Alright then, good luck to you both. I have to make a move now. Oh, you're not staying? Oh, I thought you'd want to watch today's proceedings. Well, I'd like to cheer you on, obviously. But I've got lots to get ready. Oh, get ready for what? Oh, yes. Would you like to take this? Isn't that one of the little felt dolls that's usually dangling from your knapsack? Yeah, it's a lucky charm. A little Hurley I made once. A Hurley? It looks more like a hair-ly to me. If for some reason you completely ran out of options to trial today, just pull this little Hurley's ears as hard as you possibly can. Pull its ears? That's right, it's a way to bring good luck. I think you might need it. You think that we'll need its luck? Well, we'll need its luck. I had a sneak little peek inside the courtroom, and it seemed very different to normal. Yes, it would seem that a certain someone decided to pull out all the stops. What does that mean? What about Mr. Sholmes, Iris? I don't know. He was out all night and he hasn't come home by the time we left this morning. Oh, I see. Was Professor Mikotaba out all night too, you think, Mrs. Otto? Yes, it would seem so. I telegrammed the hotel this morning. And apparently they didn't come back to their rooms last night at all. Oh. Father and Judge Jigoku, I mean. Judge Jigoku, too? What is going on here? That's right, nobody appears in either of them since yesterday. That means there were counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court is about to be in session. Please make your way inside the courtroom at once. Good luck then, Runo. Good luck, Susie. Yes, thank you, Iris. And you, Mr. Reaper. I hope it goes well. Once again, I thank you for the delicious tea. It was very soothing. I'm so glad. I must go inside now, Lord Van Zieks. And now here's a question. Does he mean... Well, Lord Van Zieks has always been a formidable prosecutor that I've had to lock horns with in court. Has always been the formidable prosecutor I've had to lock horns with in court. But not today. Today, I battle with another in pursuit of the truth. My best friend, Cosma Sogi, whom I trust more than anyone else in the world. Now I understand what it was that drew me here to Britain all those months ago. Now I know exactly what destiny had in store for me. It's all been leading up to this one day, to this one trial, and this one final reckoning. And the question is, was Von Zieks referring to Cosma pulling out of the stops, or Lord Strongheart? Because I'm still pretty convinced he's behind. Even if he's not behind the murder, I'm pretty sure he's behind so much else going on here. Just giving me too many vibes like the police chief from the first game. Oh, it feels even more oppressive in here than it did yesterday. Those cold stares piercing me like knives from all sides. Mr. Naruhodo, look! Lord Strongheart? Cosmo must have known beforehand. The ramifications of this trial now extend far beyond the murder of one Scotland Yard inspector. In fact, events have come to light that threaten to rock the very foundations of our country's legal system. Escaped of a condemned criminal on the night of his execution, subsequent unlawful shooting of the man, and the revelation that prison staff must have been complicit in the jailbreak. Britain is currently hosting influential members of the judiciary from countries all over the world. It is imperative we uncover the truth in these proceedings to avoid international embarrassment. This is bad. The fact he's in absolute control could mean he could very easily declare her guilty before it even starts, and no one would be able to stop him. I roll a decree. This will continue to be a closed trial, and one over which I, male Strongheart, exercise total and unequivocal authority. The 6 jurors' flames just as with the case in yesterday's proceedings. Those present in the public gallery are distinguished members of our judiciary, assembled to bear witness to a fair judicial process. In other words, a collection of your accolades, Lord Strongheart. Yeah, at this point, he knows there's nothing left to lose. There's no point in him saying anything except for the fact that Strongheart is clearly doing this the way he wants to do. On a personal note, I find this most distressing, Lord Van Zieks. You are a prosecutor of exceptional talent. Much like your brother Clint, in fact. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. For the trial of Barak von Zieks, who officially stands accused of murder. Counsel of the prosecution defense, are you in full readiness to proceed? The defense is ready, my lord. As is the prosecution. Yesterday's proceeding brought to light a shocking and disturbing fact. There was a side to the victim, Inspector Tobias Gregson, that was unknown to his superiors at Scotland Yard. Yes, he was carrying out Operation Secret, which Scotland Yard knew nothing about. And in those clandestine operations, he had an accomplice, Mr. Daily Vigil, who would be given the inspector's identification, and present himself around the capital in order to establish credible alibis for Gregson. In that way, Gregson appeared to be carrying out his regular Scotland Yard work when in fact he wasn't. At the end of yesterday's session, Mr. Vigil, who had been suffering from amnesia, regained his memory. It would appear to be buried in his memories of a time deep. He buried his memories of the time deep inside himself as a means of self-preservation. Because whilst he engaged as a chief warder at Barclay Prison, he abetted the convict's escape. Mr. Vigil is currently recuperating at St. Sinners. He's recovered enough to give a signed statement about his movements prior to the day incident. He's formally admitted to posing as Gregson whilst investigating the Red-Headed League, which brings us to the crucial issue of the victim's time of death. The defense yesterday proposed a suggestion the victim may not have been killed one day earlier. This was based largely on the discovery the victim's pocket watch had not been wound. The prosecution has something to report on that subject, my lord. Really, go ahead, Prosecutor Asogi. I met once again with the coroner yesterday to discuss the issue. She confirmed the defense's suggestion could not be ruled out. It is entirely possible that Gregson was indeed killed on the 31st of October, before his body was discovered. I have here an updated autopsy report that includes the amended details, but the official opinion of the investigation team was made clear yesterday. The time of death was 5 p.m. on the 1st of November. There are indications of attempt to disguise the real time of death, however, and it seems the natural decaying process of the victim's body may have been slowed by keeping it chilled somehow. That is out of the question. There are no refrigeration devices in that part of London large enough to accommodate a human corpse. My lord, this is more than just conjecture. There's evidence to support the idea. We must investigate it thoroughly. Very well. This court will accept the new report as evidence. However, this updated report is deemed to be accurate. It would give renewed significance to the movements of the victim on the day before the Fresno Street incident. It would, yes. Especially since on that day, Inspector Gregson was using Mr. Vigil to cover up his real movements. It is highly conceivable he was killed in the course of his secret activities. Though I sense that the prosecution has some information regarding those activities. Scotland Yard put an enormous effort into investigating that precise matter yesterday. I think we should begin by presenting the results of that investigation work. The prosecution calls its first witness now. Inspector Lestrade, we meet again. State your name. Alright, state your name and occupation for the court. Inspector Gina Lestrade Parton. representative of Scotland Yard. A self-conferred rank, but never mind. Gina, again? Well, Gregson's not around to do this, so... What's your problem, Oda? What's with that, Gina? Again, look, eh? Ah. Boss meant the world to me. He's done more for me than anyone else ever did. Oh, Inspector Gregson, you mean? He got me out of the back slums of the East End and took me under his wing. Taught me life can have purpose. So that's why I'm the best person to be standing here, speaking for him. Oh, Gina. Right, all out of the goodness of Gregson's heart. Not at all that he had his arm twisted by Mr. Sholmes, no. What's relevant to these proceedings is the outcome of Scotland Yard's investigations yesterday. Has revealed the victim was carrying out some assignment the police knew nothing about. Very troubling. That face. Strongheart knew. Unfortunately, we can't point that out because we don't have any evidence. So, Inspector Lestrade, let's hear exactly what it says in that report. Going right up, sir. Witness testimony. The victim's movements. All yard detectives are supposed to follow orders in investigation what they're told. But a little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had loads of secret meetings in it. According to that, the boss was looking into some smuggled goods dealings that day. Looks like it was a big job and all, but the cops weren't in on it yet. What matters most is there's witnesses who saw the Reaper at the place too. Smuggled goods? I don't know, do I? I'm just telling you what's written in the book. Tobacco, tea, spices, medicines, goods of all sorts flow into London by illegal channels from across the globe. It's well known they're disposed of at irregular black markets to take the place of the capital. But the police are rarely able to locate them in time. So Inspector Gregson was investigating one of those black markets? It's been suggested that high-ranking government officials may be involved in black market activity. No doubt Gregson was trying to avoid details of his investigations being leaked to the involved parties. I'll explain why he was operating on his own authority without the Yard's knowledge. And do we know where the dealings were taking place this time? In a particular room of a certain exclusive London gentleman's club. And on the day in question, the accused is known to have been there. That's the conclusion of Scotland Yard's investigation of the matter. Oh, that can't be. We haven't heard anything about this. Members of the club have testified to it. There's no question. The accused, Barak von Zeeks, was present. That would be very significant testimony, then. Oh, my, but, Lord Van Zeeks has made no mention of this at all. In short, Lord Van Zeeks had ample opportunity to murder the victim. Very well, then. Counsel for the defense, begin your cross-examination. Yeah, there's no question that Strongheart's trying to turn this into a kangaroo court. So we just have to make sure to dethrone the lead kangaroo. All the yard detectives are supposed to follow orders investigating what they're told. Alright, so you follow orders as well, Gina? Nah, not me. I'm above all that, see? The boss always adds special orders for me. Grab us some fish and chips, or go and give Toby his grub. That kind of thing. Oh, okay, so she's the intern. So errands more than orders, then. Well, the detective's still an apprentice, after all. Yeah, though I believe most modern terms would refer to that as an internship. Well, then again, I guess there's an argument to be made that internships are basically modern-day versions of apprenticeships. And yes, I know that some jobs still do use apprenticeship, but usually when that happens, they refer to themselves specifically as what kind of apprenticeship, like apprentice, blacksmith apprentice, something like that. If they're going to be anything else, they'll usually refer themselves as an intern. Nah, that's usually the catch-all if they're not specifying. I mean, yeah, well, this apprentice, he wants to sit around and be told what to do, even by the boss. That's why I've been doing my own investigations into what happened. Didn't find much at first. A little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had loads of secret meetings on it. So you went through the Inspector Gregson's thing, is that right? Yep, as part of the independent Lestrade investigation. I'm sure your superiors would be delighted that you're taking the initiative. So I snuck into his office when no one else was about. Because if anyone in the yard seen me going in there, they'd, turf me straight on the street. This is sounding less and less like an investigation, more like something else. The prosecution understands that it was this very detective who discovered the notebook. Got that right. Enough gets past Inspector Lestrade and your trustiest assistant, Chief Inspector Toby. Found it hidden in one of the desk drawers that had a false bottom. Oh, that's impressive. So I wanted to hide myself where no one could find me, so I could have a butcher's at what was written in it. Because if anyone at the yard had found me out, they'd have sent me straight on the street. Huh. I've given it now, though, ain't I? And if it weren't for me, we never would have been found. According to that, the boss was looking into some smuggled good dealings that day. Do you have any idea where those dealings were taking place? Yep. It's all here in the boss's notes. Let's see if I can remember. As I already said, the illegal dealings were due to take place at a gentleman's club. Ah, yes, I remember, but I was hoping to find out the name of the club. That won't be necessary. What? It's conceivable the club might be used again by the smugglers in the future. Therefore, the prosecution's been asked not to reveal the name in these proceedings. I don't know what the fuss is about. It's right here. All I gotta do is read it out. And I could, too. Got this reading game buttoned up now. Can't I show you what I can do? Go on, what's the harm? The judge hasn't signaled his objection yet. I could try to find out. What should I do? I think we should insist. This is a closed court. The proceedings are confidential. There shouldn't be any possibility of the information being leaked. As I explained, there is some possibility of politicians being involved in this affair. The prosecution's rightfully exercising caution, I imagine. No, my lord. The prosecution has no objection. Cosma? There's no question the Inspector Gregson was looking at these black market dealings. However, it's not yet been established that he was on that particular trail the day in question. If the defense requires to know the club's name, the prosecution has no intention of being obstructive. Right then, to show off me reading skills. Apparently smuggled goods was gonna happen at a gentleman's club called the Groose.
Hold it!
The Groose. What sort of club is that? I ain't got the foggiest. Clubs ain't exactly my thing. But I am kinda curious. They're not places where a foreign student like you would be readily admitted. Have you looked in the mirror recently? I tell you what, me and Inspector Toby could go in undercover. Could you though? I could back up a few good marks, see what else I could find out while I was there. I don't think you should go picking out anything, though. Anyway, that's where these black market dealings were going to take place, is it? Yeah, it's gotta be. That's where the lower-ranking detectives of the yard reckon. Says the even lower-ranking detective. Looks like it was a big job and all, but the cops weren't in on it yet. So how had Inspector Gregson come to find out about it in that case? That's the question, ain't it? But I'm just an apprentice, so... And why he didn't inform Scotland Yard of his findings? Yeah, that's what I was asking myself, because, you know, I'm just an apprentice. When it suits you, yes. Hey, the point is, something went down at that club, no question. You can't say that for certain, though, surely? What matters most is those witnesses will saw the Reaper of that place, too. Lord Van Zeeks was at the club? He was. Detectives who visited the club yesterday to make inquiries have confirmed it. Several members report seeing the accused being admitted to the room in question as a guest. Looks like there's no disputing that he was there, then. Well, we know that Lord Van Zeeks was investigating Gregson, don't we? Perhaps he'd already discovered the inspector's secret notebook, which led him to the club, you mean? Maybe. Presumably, then, there are also eyewitnesses who can testify Gregson was there? None have been identified at this time, no. So the all-important victim wasn't seen at this mysterious club. Oi, why ain't you asking Inspector Lestrade here, eh? So that's all I've got to work with. Gina's not holding back with that ice-cold stare of hers, is she? I really don't know what to make of all this. Von Zeeks told us he was investigating Inspector Gregson, but he never once mentioned that he met the inspector the day before the incident. You think Von Zeeks could have been lying to us, do you? That's not the only way to explain this. Oh? Everything Von Zieks told us is true. There must have been a mistake in this testimony somewhere. I mean, there are details we've yet to uncover. Exactly. A clue, perhaps, that even Gina hasn't noticed. Let's take another look through the evidence and let's see if we can find the Groose. It could also be Grouse, but I like to think it's going to be Groose so that I can reference that one Zelda character. I've never actually played Skyward Sword, but the Groose was focused on a bunch of memes at the time, and those were hilarious. Indeterminate evidence suggests measures may have been taken to disguise the time of death. There are details of a whole raft of cases dating back years on here, aren't there? The paper from 10 years ago is browning with age, look. Out of interest, the most recent thing appears to be this newspaper cutting here. Oh, it's the same Redhead League advertisement Mr. Sholmes picked out. And do you remember? There's a red hairpiece in the scene too. Was Inspector Gregson exponent of the Red-Headed League then? Alright, let's have a look inside. Oh, look, there is something inside. Ooh, let's see. It appears to be a passport. Authorizing him to travel overseas. Was Inspector Gregson about to go a trip abroad? Perhaps the day of departure might tell us something. Oh, what was it? We're traveling 31st of October, one day before the... Wait, really? Gregson went to France the day before his body was discovered? Oh, do you see that? There's something stuck in the side of the trunk here. It's glinting. It's a fragment of metal of some sort, but it's wedged in so tightly I can't remove it. Well, don't cut yourself. You better leave it, I think. If anything made of metal... What a charming little rabbity version of Mr. Sholmes. I suppose this is how Iris sees him. But you're right, Mr. Naruhodo. Your eyes are veritably boring the poor doll's ears. Oh, sorry, I was just wondering. What do you suppose would happen if I were to tug its ears with all my might right now? I'm sure we'll find out when the time is right. To become a proper gentleman, you must learn stoic patience. I want to know. Indicative of a duel. That is a very interesting beard he's got going. So the true Dr. Watson was actually Mikotaba the entire time. Destination, the port of Dunkirk. Mission to travel. That's what we should be looking for here. Do we have any other text documents here? The name is going to be important somehow, I think, but... Like how the Port, St. Bartholomew's Hospital, Perfect. Yeah, if the grouse is mentioned in here, it would have to be something that was illuminated, something we'd easily read. Oh, it looks like this is some sort of steamship ticket. The SS Grouse. First class cabin, Yokohama departure, 11th September, London arrival, 1st November. Ah, it's a boat Professor Mikutaba and Judge Jigoku came on. Yeah, I think it's called Dunkirk on the north coast of France before finally arriving in Dover. I think it's been almost a year since we arrived in Dover on the SS Borea. Shame not to keep a ticket as a memento of your trip, though, don't you think? Yeah, I agree. I have mine safe in my diary, and I keep mine in my wallet, so I have it with me at all times. Oh, well, how strange. Where could it have gone? Are you like this on purpose, Mr. Naruhodo? Did I imagine it, or was that hummed accompanied by a little sigh?
Objection!
Well, now that we know what the grouse wasn't... I've heard about these clubs that exist here in Britain. As I understand it, they're places where well-to-do gentlemen socialize with friends and colleagues. I don't imagine for a second that a foreign student like you would be admitted. Seriously? Is your mirror cracked or something? Do we know for sure that the contraband dealings were definitely happening at a club called the Grouse? Police are currently looking for evidence, but haven't found anything definitive yet. And I'm sorry to say, they probably won't. What do you mean by that? I mean that the place Inspector Gregson was secretly going to visit on the 31st of October may not have been a gentleman's club at all. They're showing a very irreverent attitude towards our country's police force, there, Counsel. If it wasn't a gentleman's club, then what was it? A steamship. You think it's a ship? I have evidence to prove it. Here. Let me see that. This dark-suited young man is not in the least bit untrustworthy. The other side, my lord. Be more specific next time. Ah. This would appear to be a ticket for passage upon a steamship, yes. The SS Grouse.
Objection!
So there's a steamship named the Grouse that happens to share a name with the club. But I'm afraid to say, there's a flaw in your logic there. How? Look at the ticket. Notice the date of arrival in port. The ship arrived at the port of Dover on the 1st of November. Ah. The day on which the sound like a gunshot was heard on the Fresno street. In other words, the day in question here, 31st October, when the victim was on his clandestine mission, the ship hadn't yet docked on British shores. That would certainly make an undercover investigation somewhat challenging. Ah, the fact that the steamship hadn't yet reached Britain substantiates the defense's claim that the victim was investigating the grouse in the day in question. Then show your evidence of the assertion. Very well. In that case, counsel for the defense, present your evidence to court now. Evidence to substantiate your claim that the victim was investigating the SS Grouse on the 31st of October.
Take that!
What is this? A passport for travel issued to the victim? Dated 31st of October. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that just one day before the inspector's body was discovered, there's a distinct possibility he wasn't even in the country. Order, order! This document is for passage to France. It does appear to have been officially authorized. The day before the SS Grouse arrived in Dover, it docked in the northern coast of France for a night. According to my father, who was on board, at the port of Dunkirk. Dunkirk, France. What could possibly have taken the victim there? Ahahaha. I'm impressed, Ryanosuke Naruto. I certainly didn't expect you to get your hands on that passport. What? Wait, you mean you knew about this? Prosecution strategy for this trial has been laid down by the Crown Prosecution Office. On the day before the incident, the victim was investigating contraband dealings at a London club. That's the outcome of the Scotland Yard's investigations and the line the prosecution has been asked to follow. Personally, I don't agree. I think the prosecutor's office is trying to hide something. What? And now that you've expertly disproven their assertion, I intend to reveal what I believe that something may be. What are you playing at, Prosecutor Asogi? A courtroom is a forum for the truth, my lord. Which is why it's my duty to present all the facts, without exception. Let me guess. This was your intention from the outset, wasn't it? The reason Inspector Gregson secretly made his way to the steamship docked in France the day in question was to carry out a mission for the Reaper. The Reaper? Order, order. What are you saying, counsel? The prosecution made an assertion in court yesterday. Inspector Gregson was investigating the identity of the Reaper. When he discovered the location of the man's secret hideout, he was killed. As I'm sure everyone can imagine, by the Reaper's hand. But in reality, the truth is the opposite of that. What? Inspector Gregson wasn't investigating the Reaper at all. In fact, he was acting for the Reaper. Oh, so you're saying the mission he was undertaking was, obviously, an assassination. Baron von Zieks never carried out any of the actual killings. Whenever the Reaper's victims lost their lives, he always had a cast-iron alibi. Which tells us he must have had an accomplice. And you claim that was Inspector Gregson? What the hell do y'all think you're saying? My boss would never have done nothing like that. And yet, when you consider all the facts, it all makes perfect sense. No, it can't be. We also arrived at the same conclusion, didn't we? That Inspector Gregson was operating as the Reaper. Even so, there's no way that person giving... Sorry, I need to check on the dogs a moment. Give me just one moment, please. I'm gonna have to keep periodically checking in on them. Apologize for that, especially in such a big case, but hopefully I can multitask. I hope I can multitask anyway. Was it Von Zieks? No, the true Reaper is somebody else. Baron Von Zieks is not the Reaper. A predictable response from someone who's advocating for the man. Even if it's true Gregson was operating as an agent of the Reaper, the suggestion he went aboard the SS Grouse in the assassination doesn't follow at all. Oh, you have some solid reason for doubting the assertion, do you, counsel? Oh, absolutely. It's very simple. On the day in question, nobody was killed aboard the steamship. Professor Mikutaba and Judge Jigoku were on that very ship. If someone had been assassinated, I'm certain we would have heard about it. Oh, what's so funny? You're right, of course. No suspicious deaths were reported aboard the ship, but I do think perhaps you missed the entire point. That's precisely why Inspector Gregson himself lost his life. What? Gregson did board the SS Grouse that night with the intention of dispatching his mark. But his mission ended in a failure. Failure? It seems the defense hasn't yet grasped a very important detail here. What are you talking about? What detail? Inspector Gina Lestrade. What? The victim's notebook and what you read an excerpt from earlier. That doesn't contain details of secret investigations at all. It describes 10 years of assassination plots to be carried out by the Reaper of Bailey. Oh, you're lying. Even all them blood who got taken out at it coming. Boss weren't the Reaper. Poor Gina. There's no question that Tobias Gregson was heavily involved in the Reaper's activities. You may just be an apprentice, but if you've spent any time at Scotland Yard, you must have heard rumors. I ain't heard nothing. I don't believe a word of it. To testify again as a representative of Scotland Yard. Consider it your chance to defend your boss. I concur. The witness will give new formal testimony. Mrs. Strahd, you will tell the court everything you know about Inspector Gregson's secret investigation. Witness testimony. The Reaper's notebook. Yeah, this notebook does have a list of what the Reaper got to these past 10 years. Names of victims, dates, places, stuff. And last entry here was on 31st of October. It says grouse and places on the date and the name of the mark. There's a note about him being criminal what got away from the Reaper court 10 years ago or something. Honest, Boston did none of it. It was just investigating, that's all. Ah, now that's interesting, though. This almost implies that it wasn't Genshin that murdered everyone in those years back, but how's that possible? After all. I mean, I did consider that Mikotaba or Jigoku might know more about the situation they're letting on, but keep our personal opinion out of your testimony weakness. We require only established facts here. Or rather, one's convenient for a strong heart. This must be so hard for her. Can't deny it now, surely. Ryonosuke Naruhodo. What can't I deny? The notebook contained the final mark and the location where the assassination would take place. That's information the victim could only have known if he was working with the Reaper. We never denied that he was working with the Reaper, we just never... So, who was this final mark? Go ahead, Inspector Lestrade, read the name for the court. A name that's written alongside the entry that mentions the grouse on the 31st of October. When you read it... Well, that's what we're here to find out. It's Maddie-licious. Oh, did you read this then? Reading's still not our strong suit. That ain't a problem, right, Odo? It's a funny name. It ain't English. It's hard to read. It's someone from overseas. Let me have a bash at it. Seshiro? Yeah, Saishiro Jigokyu, maybe? Wait, it can't be Seshiro Jigoku? But that's Judge Jigoku! Seshiro Jigoku. Certainly not in English. You're right. But that can't be right. I know Judge Jigoku, and I saw him the day before yesterday, here in London. And so I know for a fact that the man hasn't been assassinated. As I said, the Reaper failed. Oh. Gregson missed his chance to kill his mark and return to British shores. But the Reaper wouldn't tolerate the mistake, so he killed the inspector personally. The Reaper, of course, being the accused, Barak von Zix. It is an undeniably logical argument. Kazuma, you planned for the trial to go this way all along, didn't you? Oh dang, Von Zeeks is enamored this. Pray forget the discourtesy of filling my hollow chalice, whilst I stand accused of murder. Oh, Lord Van Zeeks. The accused has no right to speak uninvited in court. You'll return to the dock. I say nothing of whether or not I'm the Reaper. That's a task of this court to decide. There is one thing I can say unequivocally. That girl is no detective. What? Nah, that's right, I ain't. I'm an inspector. Repeating rumors heard around the yard. Reading entries from a notebook of unconfirmed origin. That is not testimony, it's practically a script. No doubt the rest of this trial will go exactly as you've clearly planned. Your hatred of me is understandable. In your mind, I'm sure I'm the Reaper who sent your father to the gallows all those years ago. But you're in danger of becoming far a far more sinister Reaper yourself, by attempting to have me condemned with this feeble excuse for testimony. What did you say? Mr. Naruhodo, this is our chance. The Lord of the defense requests that the defendant be allowed to speak. He may be privy to important information relating to the testimony just given by the witness. Very well. I will make an exception and grant the request. The defendant may remain in the witness stand for the cross-examination. Then allow me to toast the court's impartiality. Don't raise your glass in my direction, sir. Counsel for the defense, begin the cross-examination immediately. At once, my lord. Alright, this means that there's going to be a reaction from Von Zeeks in order to clarify points, so we absolutely need to watch out for that. Yeah, this note does have a load of stuff about what the Reaper got up to these past 10 years. So in other words, it shows that Gregson was basically acting as the Reaper. Not you and all. That ain't the only explanation, is it? You could have been investigating the Reaper in secret, and that the notebook said what he found out. If I may. When originally people began referring to me as the Reaper, I didn't object. I believe the power to intimidate London's criminal classes into compliance with the law would be beneficial. But you carried out your investigations of the true identity of the Reaper, didn't you? Yes, and those investigations proved conclusively that Gregson was one arm of the Reaper. One arm? What do you want about? The Reaper's victims were all extremely shrewd criminals at the top of their game. There's simply no way one person could have taken them all out alone. The Reaper has to be an organization. With you at its head? I had spies at the yard keeping me abreast of Gregson's movements, letting me know when he was elsewhere. So I'd been able to check the most recent entry in this book. I knew the location. So you knew it said the Grouse? Believing it to be a reference to the Gentleman's Club, I went there on the day in question to investigate, alone. So that explains why several members of the club claimed to have seen you there. But of course, the inspector was not there. Because at that time, he was making his way to the steamship dock to the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. So yeah, he has seen everything in there. Alright, very well then, back to your testimony about the contents of this notebook. Fine. Something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? You seemed a little shocked by something a moment ago. Oh, no, it's, alright. I'm overthinking this, aren't I? Names, victims, dates, places, stuff, and the last entry was the 31st of October. So names of victims, dates, places, and, stuff? Of what in particular? Well, besides victims' names, this other name kept cropping up. What other name was that? It's the one I told you yesterday, the same name, and over again. So you mean, Asa Shin? Oh yeah, that's the one. Is she a friend of yours or something, isn't she? Were you even listening yesterday? Asa Shin. The assassin. What, like, killer you mean? Gregson was the tactician. The one who came up with the plan of attack. He investigated the marks thoroughly, finding out when they would be vulnerable, and who to use to get at them. The person actually executing his plans was someone else, you're saying? That's true. Then the Reaper does indeed start to sound like an organized group of vigilantes. Ah, then perhaps what is found in the passport document. Permission for the applicant and one additional person to travel. Could that additional person have been... clearly the assassin who was meant to take Seshiro Jigoku's life? Gina, can you confirm that? Against the final entry listed Grouse and Seshiro Jigoku. What name was written? Oh, well... that's the only entry that didn't have a name next to it, as it happens. It just had like a question mark or something there, I think. In other words, Gregson himself didn't know the identity of the assassin in that case. Oh, but, Gregson was the one making the plans, was he not? Oh, how infuriating. A nameless assassin? It said Grouse with a name placed on the date and then the name of the mark. And you're saying that the mark listed was Seshiro Jigoku. I think this photo is going to be important at some point, but... is this the trunk? Actually, is this trunk here, the same one here? No, it is not. Darn, I thought I was actually onto something here, but no, that is absolutely not the same trunk. This photo is obviously going to be important somehow, I just need to figure out how. We don't see anything in the background at all. There's nothing about each person that stands out, or rather, nothing that stands out yet. Well, aside from this trunk, but as we established, this is not the same as this trunk. Well, I'm sure as the case goes on, what's important in that photo will become obvious. Alright, so you're saying the mark listed was Seshiro Jigoku. That's what I said. Funny name if you ask me. And I thought your name was odd. So pleased to have lost my crown there. Mr. Jigoku is the presiding judge of Japan's Supreme Court of Judicature. I remember the man. He came to our country as a visiting student 16 years ago, studying international law and diplomacy under your tutelage, Lord Strongheart. That bearded young fellow was a very able man, I must say. Sir Lord Strongheart was Judge Jigoku's mentor. If I'm not mistaken, he returned to Japan 10 years ago now. 10 years ago, after that fateful case. Precisely. In the aftermath of the professor case, his reparation was organized immediately. It's a mystery as to why such a man would be listed in the inspector's notebook. Repatriation, huh? Oh, I didn't think it was possible. The mood here has got even worse now. Maybe I'll just keep talking. There was a note about him being a criminal who got away from the Reaper in court 10 years ago, or somehow. What do you mean a criminal? Judge Jigoku's no criminal. Well, don't ask me, I don't know nothing about it. Oh, do you remember what Father told us? Judge Jigoku did once appear in court here in Britain. It was related to the professor case, I'm sure. Yes, of course, you're right. Seshiro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took the stand to testify, but he got a leg carried away and actually managed to break the witness stand. He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged. It was a pitiful situation, yes. I'd forgotten all about it, but I prosecuted that trial too, as it happens. You did? It was considered to be an adjunct to the professor proceedings, you see, but he was acquitted after being told to make reparation for the damage caused the stand. And there you have it. Have what? Surely the accused hasn't forgotten his own rule. There's no saving anyone who faces the Reaper in court, guilty or innocent alike. No, are you suggesting that the reason Judge Jigoku was targeted for assassination? The man was sent back to Japan immediately after that trial. The Reaper had no time to do his work. But then, 10 years later, the mark returns to Britain once more. Perhaps now you start to see just how vindictive the Reaper is. Oh, come on, that's absurd. Take someone's life for that? Isn't the whole premise of the Reaper absurd, killing those who have been found innocent? Clearly the rules by which the man operates are beyond any sane man's comprehension. Oh, right, I've had just about enough of this, Gina. All this nonsense about the boss plan to kill people. It's cobblers. Come on, Odo. Yes? Why ain't you saying nothing? Why ain't you yelling out objection or something? What do you mean? You gotta find a flaw, you do usually. If someone's lying here, no question, you gotta work out who it is. Oh, please, for the boss. That outburst was an insult to the court in your own testimony. I might have known that a con pickpocket from the black slums couldn't make a detective. When this trial is over, you will forfeit your warrant card, Mr. Strahd. Is that clear? I've had it with the lawyer. It's a lie's never bring in place the world, you hear it? Well, I've had enough. Gina. So have I. After that little speech of Gina's, I've made up my mind. To do what, Mr. Naruhodo? There was one point in this cross-examination when something that was said just didn't sit right with me. One statement that seemed odd. Oh, do you mean? I'm not gonna let Gina's plea for help fall on deaf ears. Naruhodo, help, you gotta find a flaw somewhere. I want to thank you, Gina. You helped me find my resolve. Eh? What do you mean? Amongst everything we've heard during this cross-examination, there's one thing that defies explanation. One inconsistency. What? An inconsistency? Really, Yodo? I don't quite know what it means yet, but... yeah, there's an inconsistency in something that was said by... oh crap, I actually don't remember. Oh, the dog's back. Give me just a moment, please, while I let him in. I actually don't know this. Let's save real quick because I think I'm gonna mess this up really, really badly.
Take that!
Oh yeah, that's wrong. There's definitely something strange about that didn't add up. Inconsistency is a statement made by this person. People can only be inconsistent by what they say if they actually testify. Yeah, I messed that up really bad.
Take that!
Oops. Of course, by you, Von Zeeks. Me? What? Your face has turned ashen. How could he know? Is that what you're thinking? My face turned ashen. It's because I'm thinking. How could he? I don't know where you're going with this, but maybe the evidence you're obviously about to show the court will clarify. In that case, the defense will present evidence to substantiate its claim. To which piece of evidence does the alleged inconsistency relate? Can't find anything out of place. Well, I suppose we should see what this inspector's identification looks like inside. Scotland Yard insignia looks genuine to me. The department identification number D. Details are all correct as well. There's no doubt this really is Inspector Gregson's identification.
Take that!
I had hoped not to present this evidence, but you leave me no choice. What do you say of this? Your feelings were correct. Presenting that evidence was a mistake. I suggest you withdraw it. I'm sorry. Good advice. Because you've turned decidedly ashy. Ah. I only hope the Reaper doesn't hold that against you. Fingers crossed. I think this line of argument has run its course. I suggest you learn from your mistakes before you make a fatal one in the eyes of the Reaper. I'd better listen very carefully to the testimony again. That's what we have to work with. It may help us that Von Zeke's in the stand, too. Yeah, perhaps. I'm sure Gina knows nothing she hasn't already told us. There's no point trying to get more out of her. You just know how Cosmo reacted to Von Zeke's words. We called him an even more sinister Reaper, you mean? I'm sure Cosmo stands to eliminate any shred of doubt that the man is guilty. He's looking for revenge against the person he considers to be his father's killer, after all. I do worry if we fail to find a discrepancy in his testimony somewhere. The trial may end, and adjudication will not go in our favor. Let's listen carefully again what everyone's saying.
Hold it!
An even worse Reaper.
Take that!
I'm not being penalized for this, so I guess I can experiment, but now I know what I need to look for. Become an even worse Reaper.
Take that!
I messed up here then. Alright, I have to go with the first one again to find the inconsistency.
Hold it!
Alright, let's wait to see what Von Zeke says. Objectively beneficial. One arm. Been able to check the most recent entry. I knew the location. You knew it said Groose. This man was a club, but of course the inspector was not there. Because the time was making this ship docked. Well, back to the testimony about the contents of the notebook. Alright, let's go again.
Hold it!
In other words, shows we were there. No explanation in it. Those investigation proves conclusively was one arm. Top of their game, there's simply no way a person could have taken them on alone. With you at its head. At Spider's the yard, keep me abreast of Gregson's movements, letting me know where it was else. Check out most recently, I knew the location. You knew it said gross. So that's why several members seen there. Of course, the inspector was not there. Because the time he was... As shown by the passport. Found on the victim's metal trunk. Oh, that's what got his attention.
Hold it!
Alright, so it's what Cosma said.
Take that!
By you, Cosma Sogi. Me? Is this some attempt at filibustering counsel? Prosecutor Sogi has given no testimony. What are you suggesting I said that was inconsistent? You let something slip that you shouldn't have. When I presented the relevant piece of evidence, I imagine you'll realize what you've done. Well, counsel, go ahead. What evidence reveals this alleged inconsistency the Professor Asogi has said?
Take that!
This is a trunk that belonged to Inspector Gregson. Metal construction, is it? It's certainly very heavy. What's this? A blood stain. And it's a relatively fresh one, too. What? You mean that grease ain't grease from the boss's fish and chips? Fresh blood on the inspector's trunk. That suggests the victim was traveling with that luggage when he was killed. It can't be. There was no mention of any trunk at Scotland Yard report. Yes, there's a reason for that. Immediately after the inspector's body was discovered, one of the street peddlers made off with the trunk, hoping to sell it. Oh, but I found it, me, with nose for trouble. Which means that nobody should have known anything about the trunk. Unless, of course, we're talking about somebody who was present when the victim was killed. And yet, during the cross-examination of the witness just now, you said this, Kazuma. Because at the time he was making his way to the steamship dock in the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found on the victim's metal trunk. That's right, we never showed him the trunk before, we only showed the passport. So the question is, how do you know about the inspector's trunk? We know the man went on a trip to France. Where else would he have put his passport? But you knew it was a metal trunk. Answer me honestly, Kazuma. On 31st of October, where exactly were you? At the port of Dunkirk, on board the SS Grouse. Is that the answer you're looking for, Inosuke? Wait, Kazuma, what did you... I hadn't considered the possibility before, but if Kazuma was there on the ship, then it can only have been for one purpose. Oh no, Mr. Naruhodo, surely you don't think... Come on, Rhinosuke, you know the rules. The only thing that really talks in this room is hard evidence. As I understand it, Inspector Gregson always took that case with him when he traveled. So as it stands, you've proved nothing. Kazuma, are you challenging me to prove it beyond all reasonable doubt? That you were there on that day in the same place as the inspector? He was there with Gregson? There's a clue you've overlooked, a secret that the trunk can tell us. I can't be sure, but I'll need to verify it. Wait, does that mean it's his sword that broke in there? But I have a nasty feeling I may be right. The accusation being made is deeply disturbing, but nevertheless, we must test it. The defense will identify for the court where in the trunk this alleged clue is to be found. Where's the evidence that... We need to open it first. Alright, let's have a look inside. We weren't able to remove this piece. Got it. There's a small piece of metal lodged inside the wall of the trunk here, like the tip of a blade. A blade? Kazuma, slung around your waist as ever today, is the esteemed blade Kurama. Of course it is. Won't you please draw it, here in this courtroom, for all to see? Exercise caution, my learned friend. That man is the son of London's most notorious killer. Bailiff, watch Prosecutor Asogi like a hawk. That won't be necessary. The tip. Oh no! The tip has been broken. If the fragment of metal from the trunk fits together with the end of that sword, the question of who was there with the Inspector Gregson will be answered. Agreed, Kazuma Asogi. Expertly done, Rhinosuke. That is a point to you, and well deserved. Do you mean to tell the court, Prosecutor Asogi? Yes, on the 31st of October, I accompany Inspector Gregson to the Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. So the additional person authorized to travel with him was me. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. What? You mean you're the killer whose name was omitted from this book? You were following the Reaper's orders to dispatch Judge Jigoku. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. I've killed no one. Explain. Except the assassination mission, yes. I accompanied Gregson to Dunkirk. But but I never had any intention of carrying out the plan. You are never going to do it? We can believe Cosma, I'm sure. After all, Judge Jigoku arrived safely in London the following day. On the 31st, I boarded the train from London with the Inspector Gregson. We traveled to Dover, from where we crossed the Channel to Dunkirk. When we boarded, the SS Grouse made for the cabin deck, as indicated in the plan. So you went to Judge Jigoku's cabin? Exactly. He wasn't there, though. We decided to wait, but you've already told us you had no intention of going through with it anyway. I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in the town and returned to England the following morning. A boarding house in Dunkirk? My signature will be on the register book. It would be simple enough to verify. Then, what became of Jigoku? Gregson was no assassin, so the mark was spared. I'm sure it's easy enough to imagine what happened after that. Gregson returned to England as well, having failed to complete the mission. He met with the Reaper in that room on Fresno Street to report the failure, causing the infuriated mastermind to pull the trigger and end his wretched agent's life. That's the real truth behind Inspector Gregson's murder. But if you did nothing as you claim, how did the tip of your sword come to be lodged in the inspector's trunk? Dang, even when he's not in the prosecutor's dock, Von Zeeks is absolutely on top of everything. I don't need to answer that. The victim was killed by a gunshot. A small fragment of a Japanese blade isn't relevant in this case. And accordingly, I choose to exercise my right to silence on the matter. Be that as it may, the court will sequester the sword as evidence. As you wish, my lord. The great sword Kurama, a lustrous blade, passed down the prize where tip is missing. We must take immediate action now to verify whether Sessuru Jigoku remains unharmed. Remains unharmed? I agree, that should be our first priority. It's recently come to my attention that he hasn't been seen since yesterday. How did you... When a foreign dignitary is invited to Great Britain goes missing for 24 hours. It's only natural that the question of his safety should arise. You don't mean to say that you think Judge Jigoku may have been killed? The Reaper has more than one assassin at his disposal, and he has the power to influence to give orders from the inside of a prison cell. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zeeks? If I were truly the Reaper, I'd be able to tell you. That's a good response, actually. Dang, he's really keeping up his sass even when he's the one in the defendant's docket. Order in the court, order. We'll take an emergency recess for 30 minutes. Now, guests of the symposium have been told to maintain a regular contact with the organizer's office. If the man can't be located within half an hour, we will have to assume the worst. Oh no, not Judge Jigoku. No one would want to kill a harmless Japanese man who'd only just arrived in the country. Except that is... for the Reaper, wanting to finish a mark that slipped through the net 10 years ago. I would have to agree. Mr. Naruhodo, for the defense's sake, my lord, I sincerely hope we're successful. If we're unable to confirm Mr. Jigoku's healthy existence in the next 30 minutes, we will face grave difficulties. You know what, I bet that's what Mr. Sholmes was decided to investigate. Trying to find where Jigoku is. Court is adjourned for 30 minutes. Cosma, the Reaper's assassin. I feel as though I'm in a nightmare. I can hardly believe it either. But on the other hand, Cosma is in the habit of making up stories. I have such a terrible sense of foreboding. Something awful's happened to Judge Jigoku. I feel as though things will only spiral further and further out of control. I felt it from the moment I stepped into the courthouse this morning. That strange sensation that we were careening towards a foregone conclusion. Well, in the worst case, we might only have 30 minutes left. Unfortunately, though, I don't think there's anything we can do but wait now. We're out of options. Actually, there may be one last hand we can play. Or rather, one last ear. Of course! Little Mr. Sholmes' doll that Iris gave us. She hid something inside of it. And for some reason you completely ran out of options to trial today. Pull this little Hurley's ears as hard as you possibly can. She hid something inside the doll for us, but what is it? Perhaps now's the time. What should I do? Pull Hurley's ears or not? We don't really have a choice, do we? Well, here it goes then. I'm gonna do it. Good luck, Mr. Naruhodo. No looking back. Heave. Ow. That scream sounds like Mr. Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, where are you? Here, my dear fellow, here. It's a felt doll talking. I'll pull the ears again, as hard as you can. Alright, I'll pull all my strength into it. Heave! Ow! Please, my dear fellows, you don't need to pull my ear off. Mr. Sholmes, where are you? Myself and my trusty partner are presently in the first-class cabin area of the SS Grouse. The SS Grouse? She left over last night after the final pieces of cargo were loaded. We are currently docked at Dunkirk, but due to be underway again in half an hour. You've taken a ship to France? Please, even my athletic prowess, I would struggle to jump the Straits of Dover. After we left Baker Street last night, we hurried by cab to the station by train to port. In order to board this vessel in time. So you mean you'd already worked it out? The steamship was where everything really took place. Mr. Naruhodo, pray, what is my name? Herlock Sholmes, world-famous great detective. Recited to perfection. Well done. You're a genius, Mr. Sholmes. That's the only word for it. Ow, 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 ow. Mr. Zato, gently with this genius's here, please. Oh, I'm ever so sorry. If I may, Sholmes. Ah, there you are, Mikotaba. You may remember that was in fact I who made the connection to the SS Grouse. At Scotland Yard yesterday when we examined the notebook and I recalled my steamship ticket. Ah ha ha ha! But of course it was, my dear fellow. Not once did I controvert that fact. I merely had our contract-bound companions under my name. Yes, you did, didn't you? Yes, you did, didn't you? We just entered a recess. The trial resumes in 30 minutes from now. And if we're unable to prevent any new leads then, I'm afraid to say... Do not fret, please, for it's precisely that purpose my partner and I have made this journey. I have no doubt we shall have welcome news for you within a half hour. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. It would be wonderful. Until later, then. Yes, you'll be hearing from us if you're not in touch first. Ow, 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 ow. I shouldn't be hearing anything if you keep tugging my ear in a mindless fashion. Whatever was the idea behind making a receiver operate in such a way in the first place, Sholmes? Why the deuce would I... Oh, this is Iris's invention, not mine. Must I know how much you enjoy being the hero of the hour, Sholmes? We have about half of that now before the Grouse puts to sea again. If we don't conclude our investigations rapidly, we shall find ourselves in Naples before long. There are times, Mikotaba, when you make a surprising amount of sense. So, let us begin. Oh hey, we get to control Mikotaba now. First class cabin number 2. Yes, this is the one. But I don't believe an investigation of the cabin is going to be plain sailing. That crewman standing in front of the door is an angry-looking fellow. Why are you loitering here? Who are you? My dear fellow, do you not recognize a world-famous great detective when you see one? The question really ought to be, who are you? Do you not recognize a world-traveling great sailor and strong enough when you see him? Great detective? Ha, I don't think so. Do you see that, Mikotaba? It would appear that this man is a devoted follower of mine. Goodness me, is that a tattoo? It says Sholmes! I must say, while fine adoration is flattering naturally, it does leave me a little cold. But what are you talking about? Leave now. How distressing my loyal devotee knows me only by name, not appearance. And yet I already know a great deal about you, sir. You have a brother, I believe. Like yourself, he's a shipman. Currently traveling the world aboard a Russian steamship, in fact. How could you know this? Elementary, my dear Mikotaba. I'm sure it was. 3 days ago, I was bound for London aboard the ship, you see. We were looking for one of my fellow passengers, a man by the name of Jigoku. There is no one with this name on board. Ah, but we know he purchased a ticket for passage. Ah, you mean Eastern Man. He left ship 2 hours ago. You're at Dunkirk. Something about an emergency, I think. What? Are you sure? So Cheshire's realized we're after him, has he? His cabin's the one behind you. We should like to investigate it, please. No, I've ordered not to let even Mouse inside. Mikutaba, be a good man and draw this sailor's attention away, would you? Make up an excuse till he leaves the area. Doesn't great detective see? Even sailors have ears, both left and right. Curses, the plan's ruined. And you have only yourself to blame, I'm afraid, Sholmes. Forget it, cabin door's locked. Even if I'm not here, you cannot get inside. Mikutaba, I'm sure you haven't forgotten my special talent, have you? Opening any lock. Within a mere 5 seconds. So if you'd be so kind as to afford me the requisite time, old friend, in your typically accommodating manner. How could I refuse such a typically unappealing request, my friend? So I need to distract the burly sailor for 5 seconds. Good man. So, the game is afoot. This must be a mousetrap, I think. Perhaps I could distract the crewman's attention with this somehow. Snap. Choo, choo, squeak, squeak. That sounds like Big Mouse in the trap. I will bring bucket of water later and put out of misery. I don't like the sound of that. In any case, my dear fellow, that was quite unconvincing. Only Japanese mice make a chew sound. Oh, really, Sholmes? And pray tell, what sound do Russian mice make? Pee. Though also quite convincing, unconvincing, I admit. Go ahead, Mikutaba, do a pee this time. No thank you, I'm sure I could come up with an alternative solution. Ah, the switch for the electrical lights. Perhaps if I were to turn off the lights, the crewmen wouldn't be able to see what we were doing. Might as well. Click. Ah, what is happening? Where is lights? Now, Sholmes, now. The dump. Nobody there. That was a close shave. Why didn't you have stumbling so violently into an apparently empty corridor? Do be quiet, Sholmes. I shall have to think of another approach. That's another first-class cabin, and yet its door is completely unguarded. Empty as well. Had a quick look inside earlier. Though I confess I didn't investigate the wardrobe. There may very well have been a young Japanese fellow inside, perspiring merrily. If you're referring to Naruhodo, you know very well that he's currently perspiring merrily in court. Does it not strike you, though, Mikutaba, why the man stands guard only in front of this cabin when both are apparently vacant? This would appear to be an alarm bell. All hell would break loose if that thing were to ring. The whole crew would know about it. Guess we have no choice. Set if off. Well, here goes then. Pardon me in advance. Yo, what are you doing? Lord say, that'll be a very big problem. What's going down there? Seaman strong enough. Report at once. Sorry, sir, nothing to report. It's just a stupid trick. No, not by me, by world famous. No, no, as I told you. Now, Sholmes, now. Done. Not even 5 seconds, eh? Don't stand there gawping at my brilliance, Mikutaba. In we go. Oh, yes. That's the trunk that was in the photo. Good gracious! It appears the occupant of this cabin did indeed disembark rather hurriedly. Those clothes on the floor there, they're Seshiro's without question. Well, it seems we were just a little too late. Yes, by about 2 hours. Still, whilst we're in here, we should investigate thoroughly. There may well be 2 hours worth of clues to find here. But our burly crewman may return at any moment, Sholmes. Indeed he may. Which makes it all the more thrilling. Quite the exquisite glass, I must say. See here how it, Is something wrong, Sholmes? You suddenly trailed off. Ice, Mikotaba, ice. Yeah, I was about to when opulence first passengers only chill drinks. Oh, but the fact these haven't melted means it hasn't been 2 hours, has it? Pardon? Could it be the steamship is equipped with an electric refrigerated cold room, you think? Well, it's a luxury liner after all. They have enormous refrigerators for storing all sorts of lavish produce as well as ice. On a voyage from Japan, we enjoyed culinary delights from all around the world. Suddenly, Mikotaba, the sight of you is making my mouth water. I haven't taken on the flavor of the food I ate, you know? Yeah, but the fact the ice hasn't melted means he might still be here. This is the waste paper basket. Look. And there's still rubbish inside. Indeed. Let us pry. I've discovered recently I have a penchant for exploring the contents of those waste paper baskets. I sincerely only hope for your work. Ah. Here we have a notice issued to passengers from 3 days ago. The night before we arrived in London then. I was still aboard myself. Evacuation drill notice. Following the port of Dunkirk, all crew members required to assemble the main deck to... yes, there was an evacuation drill. I remember now. For our safety and security, all first-class passengers were constantly under watchful eye of the crew. So it was a welcome relief to have some privacy for once. The wall is slightly different color here, do you see? Indeed, what I have observed arises from when a frame that's been hanging there for quite some time has been removed. Perhaps your friend is an art thief. Now there's a bold deduction worthy of a great detective, I'm sure. He may very well be the elusive thief who's been plaguing France's galleries as of late. I think perhaps we should focus our attentions elsewhere, Sholmes, don't you? That outlined the wall. I feel as though I might have spotted something of a familiar shape and size elsewhere. These are rules of passage. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. Additionally, there are severe punishments for stowing away in wardrobes and/or travel cases. I feel the rules have increased since the last I read them. Probably just my imagination. But about the fact they're not straight on the wall, doesn't that strike you? You may be right. Probably just your imagination, though, a trifle. And you know what I always say, Mikotaba? There is nothing important about trifles. It's probably just my imagination, but I think that might be slightly off. That's a very sizable trunk indeed. Cheshire is partial to all things large. Rather clumsy fellow if he failed to notice he'd left that behind. Perhaps he left on purpose. It's lighter than you might think, but still a hindrance to a speedy escape. Pity. It's locked, so we can't look inside. Surely 5 seconds from now, the situation will be quite different, though, won't it? Sadly not, as a seven-digit combination lock. And I'm not tomorrow's enough mood to work through all the combinations at present. You're still here. Able Seaman Stronganoff. Hello again. I was beginning to think you'd never materialize. You are waiting for me? Of course. I was expecting you to burst in with a hearty Russian bravado far sooner. I was in trouble with Captain because of a trick you played before. Poor innocent... It is all your fault. Ship leaving port soon. Get off now. Of course, we shall disembark presently, my dear fellow, but first, there's something that must be done. What are you talking about? Why, naturally, the debunking of your deceit and bearing of the truth. What? I'm afraid I see through your lies. For one thing, Mr. Jigoku has not yet left this vessel at all. And for another, my dear Seaman Stronganoff, you know exactly where the man is, even as we speak, don't you? How can you... Good gracious, Mr. Sholmes. You mean you worked it out? All of it? It's really been too long, hasn't it, old friend? 10 years, no less. So, would you care to join me for a dance of my indomitable logic and reasoning? Nothing would please me more. What is this? We have but minutes until the vessel is put to sea. No games now. Time is of the essence. Mr. Stroganoff, allow me to remind you of your earlier claim. You told us that Jigoku left the ship 2 hours ago. Ah, that is what I said. Sadly, that is a rather clumsy lie. You see, there is something in this room that quite clearly contradicts it. What? Ah, yes, of course. I see you've noted it too, Mikotaba. Then please, do take the lead. What in this cabin shows the impossibility of Jigoku having disembarked 2 hours ago? Let's see what the last 3 years have done to your observational skills then, Mikotaba. It's been 10 years since we last did this, Sholmes, not 3. Why, of course it has, quite. Now all the clues are here in this cabin for your eyes to see. But as I always say, you must not merely look, but observe. Observe, and the answers become clear. So impress me. I think I can manage that. Oh, I can't.
Take that!
Ah, nice. We even get to see Mikotaba making it to take that. Perhaps you should have cleared away that glass. How curious, the ice shouldn't have melted despite it having been abandoned 2 hours ago. Ah. It would appear that the man was here in this very cabin until moments before our arrival. With this well-chilled glass in hand, get your mind off the refreshments, Sholmes. One might even conclude that somebody informed him of our boarding. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Stroganoff? But why would Seshiro run from us? Before we consider that question, allow me to confirm one simple matter. Would I be correct in saying these first-class cabins of the SS Grouse are the same ones in which you and Mr. Jigoku accommodated on your voyage from Japan? Ah, that's right, they are. That was the cabin next door. Seshiro was, yes, 50 days in this very cabin during our voyage, as I suspected, for you see, there are traces in this cabin of a dark secret that Mr. Jigoku had to hide. Traces? I know nothing of this. Ah, this is news to you, is it, Mr. Stroganoff? Sholmes, what exactly are you getting at? As I said, there are traces in this cabin of some nefarious activity. Something that appears out of place, which I'm quite sure wouldn't have escaped your notice. Something out of place in here. And that's a key to this, Mikotaba. The remnants of the dark deed that took place in here being masked by something quite ruinous, incongruous. I must say, I didn't foresee us ever doing this dance of deduction ever with you again, Mikotaba. No, quite, but my life is full of unexpected twists and turns, as we well know. Now then, let's see if I can't uncover the truth here. Yes, you have the floor, my dear fellow.
Take that!
Oop, nope. Mikotaba, no games now were my words, were they not? Come now, Sholmes, where's the fun in life without a little fooling around? Quite right you are. That was a close shave. I'd better rethink that before I'm the fool here. You must tilt your head to one side and listen carefully. The faint cry is the scene. Here are the evidence calling for you to find it. Here I am, it cries. Well, your methods were never conventional, but you know I'm always willing to give them a try. Oh goodness. This Mikotaba, open your eyes. A metaphorical listening I was suggesting. Oh. Speaking tube.
Take that!
Oh, darn. Well, that does imply something nefarious is going around. It's rather awkwardly hiding traces of a crime.
Take that!
The rules of passage. It's the rules of passage in this frame here. They're obviously out of place. The way they're hanging crooked on the wall, as if they were put there in a hurry. Yes, I'm sure you've already concluded. That frame was originally over there. The shape and size are a perfect match. You are right. When did that frame move? Hardly the most observant of crewmen, are you, Mr. Stroganoff? I would think your captain's quite justified in having his reservations about your reliability. Oh dear, that really did seem to touch a nerve. So, Mikataba, why don't you lift the frame off the wall? That looks like a bullet hole. What? Who's been shooting walls? I see the projectile's been removed. Clearly, the careful occupant of this room has already disposed of it. Now then, Mr. Stroganoff. I have the distinct impression they are attempting to shield said occupant. I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I protect an Eastern stranger? So we're talking about the same man, I see. Good. I'm sure we can get to the bottom of this in no time, aren't you? Because there's some very noteworthy evidence that explains the reason why you're lying for this man. Yes, you've been told to keep up this pretense as clearly shown by... I really don't know how to approach this one, Sholmes. My dear Mikataba, simply keep first principles in mind. Study the subject from every angle. I'm quite sure you'll see it. In fact, I'd put a wager on it. So, I'm to glare at the fellow from all sides? Well, I can certainly do that. Chunky arms. A lot of banknotes. He was bribed. It's almost too obvious for words. Quite the universal language of the world. Money. I'd wager that Eastern fellow in question is Sesshouro Jigoku, yes? So, I presume you realize what this means. There are clear signs that crimes have been committed in this cabin, and the way you're going, sir, you'll find yourself accused of being an accomplice. Oh, but... I believe you know, Mr. Stroganoff. You know where Mr. Jigoku's hiding this precise moment in time. As always, Mikataba, in matters of deduction, the furtive glance is your unfaltering ally. Yes, I think you're onto something there, Sholmes. You found the chink in this particular fellow's armor. We need only follow the man's gaze to know where our prey is hiding. The slightest flicker of the pupils, minutely delayed blink. I need a drink and my mouth is really dry. There we are. Nothing escapes my attention, even that which is barely perceptible. I could hardly call this barely perceptible, Sholmes. This man's turned his entire head. It's not exactly what we describe as a furtive glance, is it? It's almost too obvious. We shall let your tapping toes decide, my good fellow.
Take that!
Large trunk. Oh, well, let me check the wardrobes. Has to be the trunk. You turned immediately to look at this large trunk, didn't you? The truth is, Sesshouro was unable to escape from the ship in time, and is at this very moment doing his best to stifle his breath inside this trunk. He still has breath to take. I fear he may be running dangerously low on air. Imagine he didn't count us making a nuisance of ourselves for quite so long. I think it would be in everyone's best interest for us to open the trunk as quickly as possible. But how can we? Are we forgetting about the combination lock? We don't know the 7-digit code. The combination lock can't be opened from inside this trunk. Therefore, there must have been an arrangement for somebody to open it after our departure. Of course. In short, before Jigoku hid himself in that trunk, he must have told somebody the 7-digit number for the lock. And I'm sure you can confirm, Mr. Stroganoff. No, I know nothing of combination code. Don't move a muscle, my good seaman. Seaman. Now, Mikotaba, would you do the honors and open the trunk? Got news? Oh, hello, Fox. Oh, he's have some news going on? That's a 7-digit number now. Quickly, we have a little time. Ooh, so it wasn't Sholmes. It's a number that just happens to look somewhat similar to Sholmes' name. Oh, Q, review scene. So, 5... Alright, so how would he look at it when he's looking there? It's upside down, so, 5, 2, 3... Alright, 5, 2, 3, 1, 0. Oh, you found a new game you wanted to share? Sure, if you want. I've got this month packed for what games I want to be finishing. After I finish Ace Attorney here, I'm going to be doing a revisit of an old favorite, and I do have a Halloween special planned. I'm not sure if I'll... Now, I'm not 100% sure how long the next game is going to take, but worst case scenario, I can just take a hiatus. Ooh, Tales of Arise. Heard some pretty good things about that one. But the one that I'm going to be revisiting is, because October is my birthday month, I usually do a game from my personal past here. So once this game's over, you'll be seeing one that was special to me personally. It's in a genre I don't normally play either, so I'm hoping it'll be interesting. And of course, I don't usually do a Halloween special, but I've got a good idea for one this year. It's going to be a short and sweet game, so I'll probably complete it the night I do it, but yeah, basically I need to make sure I get all these done in October. I think this game is almost at its end since I'm on the final case, so we'll see how much longer it takes. I don't mind if the birthday special one ends up going a bit into November, but I have to be absolutely sure I do the Halloween special the day of, because I don't want to delay that. How do I feel about Sora being in Smash Brothers? Honestly, I genuinely didn't think it was possible given the amount of rights relating to the character. Because he's basically a joint ownership, and all parties involved need to do some special agreements in there. I genuinely didn't think it was going to happen, but it did. And I'm quite happy, really. The final scene at the end of the trailer with the Sora and Mario shaking hands is absolutely... Yeah, it was just a really good scene, I think. I doubt they're ever going to be able to do anything like that again, but just the fact it happened once, I think that's a pretty neat thing. And I'm glad the Kingdom Hearts games are getting re-released on stuff. Unfortunately, for PC, they're mostly on the Epic Store, so unless I can convince myself to get a reason to download that, I probably won't be able to play it, but I'll have to see, I guess. Yeah, I have a hard time getting into Kingdom Hearts because it's one of those really complicated franchise storylines. Not to say I'm averse to those in and of themselves. I mean, I like Fate stuff, and the Fate franchise is absolutely ridiculous. So it's just that you have to make sure you're ready before going in, because it's something you don't surface from very easily, you know what I mean? Alright, so 5, 2, 3, 1, 0, 4. Five.
Take that!
There we go, we broke the combination. Click. That did it. It's open. You had to meddle, didn't you? Well, Eugen, you found me now. Seshiro. Now we need some answers, and we need them now. I was really hoping beyond hope not to find you here, you know? But you're not entirely unsurprised, I take it. No, quite. I just wish it was some other way. Well, are you ever going to introduce me? Ah, your reputation precedes you, Mr. Sholmes. I've read stories of your many exploits. Excuse my manners, Sholmes. This is Mr. Jigoku, my old friend and traveling companion. The devil's in the details, Mikotaba. I believe you meant to say your old friend and traveling companion, who made the cowardly decision to flee the country without a word to anyone when things turned sour. I see my reputation precedes me as well. What an honor. Alright, well, Seshiro, are you going to explain all this? You know it all by now, I imagine. What you didn't know, of course, is that 3 days ago, on the night before arrival in Britain, an attempt was made on my life here in this very ship, by the Reaper of Bailey. Yes, I've since heard. Because you were once prosecuted by the Reaper, weren't you? 10 years ago now, mind you. And I had no idea at the time what a dangerous individual he was. Anyway, when we arrived in London to find the symposium had been postponed until goodness knows when, it became all too apparent to me that I might very well be targeted again. So you decided to flee the capital without saying a word to me about it? I'm afraid so, yes. Of course, I realize now that I really ought to have confided in you. It's somewhat surprising, I must say. What is? Well, first-class cabins aboard luxury steamships are in very short supply. It's more than a little hard to believe that this one just happened to be available. Says the protagonist of some colorful short stories. Well, I don't care for your opinion. The cabin did just happen to be available, so I purchased a ticket, and here I am. I've just seen for myself the obvious remnants of the incident in this cabin. So you've already purchased your return ticket before we'd even docked in Dover, have you? To prevent anyone else from taking this cabin and seeing the evidence, is that it? Eugen, I have nothing to say to you. Well, in a mere 5 minutes, the ship will set off on its own voyage and not make port again until Italy. I'm afraid we must insist you embark with us at once. You have no jurisdiction over my movements. We have this, Seshiro. Take it. What is this? It's a subpoena from the Old Bailey. You're a man of the law. You know what ramifications are. You know what the ramifications of ignoring a document like this from the British courts would be. You came prepared then, Eugen. Come on, let's go. One moment. What is it, Mr. Sholmes? Inside Mr. Jigoku's trunk. I found this rather fascinating trinket. What is that, Seshiro? Can't tell, but I'm afraid. Some small component from something. It's a piece of the detective pocket watch. What? I have no idea. By the look on his face, I think he genuinely doesn't know. Well, let us pocket as a small souvenir of our brief sojourn in France. A small component. Well, young Naruhodo, I think we've done as much as we can. I'm afraid. The rest will be on the shoulders of you and your assistant. I think we've finally gotten everything we needed to solve this case. We just need to make sure it all comes together. It can be a bit wordy sometimes, but then again, this is a game about law. Since when are things not wordy there? Kazuma Sogi, I know you, and I know you wouldn't lie. But still, there's no doubt that you're holding something back. You know more than you're saying. During the past 30 minutes while this court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. Sadly, Mr. Jigoku's whereabouts could not be ascertained. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion. The Reaper has already done the deed. There's no sense in wasting any more of the court's time. The prosecution calls for an immediate verdict. No, the trial cannot end now. You're a Japanese man, Ryanosuke. You should know when to lay down your sword. And you should know never to presume when the battle is won. The court has already presented with all the evidence and heard all the relevant testimony. There can only be one conclusion, that the accused is guilty. All relevant testimony? Far from it. There's still a crucial witness, from whom the court has yet to hear a single word of testimony. In that case, call your witness to the stand at once, counsel. Yes, my lord. Tomorrow, if possible. The witness is already on his way, and scheduled to arrive tomorrow. Who on earth is this crucial witness? Seshiro Jigoku, the very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. Judge Jigoku? You found him? But the investigations of every policing resource in the capital suggest that Jigoku's already dead. How in the name of God did you find the man? He was located in France during the recess, at the port of Dunkirk, thanks to one of Mr. Herlock Sholmes' famous deductions. Herlock Sholmes. Inspector Gregson almost certainly met with Mr. Jigoku on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Asogi, Gregson was on a mission to assassinate the man. Which means that Seshiro Jigoku is the sole witness who can clarify exactly what happened aboard the SS Grouse on the 1st October. Yeah, if everything here is correct, this means that Judge Jigoku was the last person to see him alive. Well, it would appear that it's too soon to move to adjudication at this point. Prosecution concurs. The court must hear Mr. Jigoku's testimony. No judgment should be passed until all testimony has been considered. In that case, I hereby call the end of today's proceedings. The court will reconvene at the same hour tomorrow. No objections from either side? No, my lord. No objections, my lord. We live to fight another day, by the skin of our teeth. To be continued. Oh, we're going to the investigation phase now. The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. Sholmes is sweet. We've returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotaba and I. No? You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in the court earlier. So this prosecutor, Asogi, had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible to think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. When all this started, almost a year ago now, when he was in a terrible accident, Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then, about the motivation of what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is in another country, Mr. Sholmes. So what news of Judge Jigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikotaba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah, yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put up on you, for the matter, only yesterday. Put up on me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already? What was so urgent, though, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. That's good news, because supper's ready, everyone. Ah, and what a feast it is. If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up. In that case, I think I'll seat myself here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well. Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there. Why ever not? Are we in set places this evening? Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. Oh, for me. That's right, I made especially for you, Professor. I see. Well, it's terribly kind of you. It's a shame, really. Oh, what do you mean? Well, for a brief moment, I believed it. Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. Oh. Iris, do you mean... Yeah, I know now. I overheard you yesterday. I secretly listened to the whole conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left. What? The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikutaba are Iris's father. Yes, about that, Iris. You know I know, you can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. Is she Sholmes' daughter? The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get an apologetic pheasant? So just who is Iris's father? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. So then, let us dine while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. A fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious. Eat as much as you like, they're always second. This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan. About Kazuma, I can't let this opportunity slip away. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Pouting by the looks of it. Yeah. Sure, it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikutaba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from his social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant for Susie's daddy. Even though I played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes, could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I found myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt, you're hungry to learn more of the deep love of game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? Seems before we discuss the pheasants, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. Now that's a dad joke if I ever heard one. The telegram from Japan. First things first. Alright, so what was that telegram you received back from Japan then? Ah, this. I thank my lucky stars it arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. Kayasogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. Oh, those 4 names. We've come across that same list before. That was at the end of the last game. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be a masking, monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. We didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now? Yes, where the sender of your telegram discovered them, Mr. Sholmes. I have here a message I had wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Jigoku's office under undetected investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names. Need by tomorrow. Naruhodo. I sent it to a detective I know specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. Oh, you asked Inspector Hasanaga to undertake such an onerous task for you. And in my name? Wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it's a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Seshiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Jigoku. He was the intended recipient. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies. I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. Now let's ask about the truth behind Cosmo's death. This is the one thing he mentioned we couldn't trust him about. So, by his own admission, so what was that about? The tragedy we had to go through in the SS Borea is for nothing. Cosmo wasn't dead after all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us. You're a great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on events that transpired to see what was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Miss Susato. And then, I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. You mean... The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer, one judicial assistant to be accompanied on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all the aid of stopping Cosmo coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? The terms of study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice of both Britain and Japan. In light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue, surely. Oh, that's right, it was him all the way back then. There's no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know no other lawyer. The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. So he knew this? You manipulated me? I have often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship would drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe this. But if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman mistakenly arrested the perpetrator. What do you suppose became? Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. I seem to remember Miss Susato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain? The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of a pending tragedy, you see. An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand. An ill omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand. We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. Alright, we have to present him evidence to get this going. Alright, so there's no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear this was Judge Jigoku's office to be searched, so... You obviously knew that that's where the list of names to be found? Yeah, Kazama Sogi, Assassin, Tobias Gregson, John Wilson. We only learned of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now, and only because they appeared as part of a top-secret government communications that were leaked. That's true, yes. At the same time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan around 6 months before that. Approximately this time last year, in fact. when you both were still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to prove others for intercepting state secrets, because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between British and Japanese governments. You're perpetually doing what? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret's safe from Herlock Sholmes, when he has designs on knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, what a fabulous line. Now, 1 month after the list of 4 names wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turns out, I was partly correct, and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy of which they're somehow connected. The 4 names. As I said, when I learned of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else in that list who I believe to be recently deceased. Who? A Shin was as it was transcribed from the Japanese script, in actual fact, Miss Assassin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavory classes. I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed, and accordingly I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list. Ah, Sogi and Gregson. Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself, but I determined it would be safest if young Asogi were to stay from Britain. Ah, so that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. And that also is why he felt so bad when he heard Gregson died, because he had done all that only to fail. Exactly. Oh, so you already knew Cosmo was Mr. Sholmes? Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I've recounted many tales with Sogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course. So, Dr. Wilson's dead then? I didn't know. Oh, Iris. I know he wasn't my daddy, but still, that's very sad. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No. What you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. A big hole, Mr. Naruhodo? Ah, yes. You mean about Assassin, I presume? Oh, of course. Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Giselle Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow, but I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago, in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. Ah, that's right, he was listening in to us. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. A topsy? The topsy hypothesis. What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I believed I had all 4 on the list to be names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Very much so. Asa Shin was a killer. So this telegram was a list of both victims and killers, was it? Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Mr. Wilson. Her visiting student status was merely a front. Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Assassin was because he was the target of an assassination. And armed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. Yeah, what do you mean? Unfortunately, I don't want to say it, but well, does not strike you, there's another among the 4, who subsequently became a visiting student. Yeah, I don't like this, but of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma? He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on the 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was the assassination of Monarch. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now. Oh, surely not? In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange. How could Cosmo have gotten involved in something like that? Let's assume we have the two parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would be an assassin exchange. So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange. Oh, but what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruhodo. That is the British assassins at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction. Oh, yeah. Such jurisdiction will be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between the two countries, so the factors brought into play suggest the intervention at the very highest levels. These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but a contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated. Yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular, devilish scheme. That disassociation, the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. But wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins you're suggesting, that would mean the Japanese killer target was never Seishiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asogi's target was actually Inspector Gregson. Cosmo was here for Gregson? So Jigoku wasn't actually a mark? Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. That's why he was so hard on himself. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. I told him my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition. He'd been transferring to Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. This means that they knew this would be the final chance to get Inspector Gregson. Alright everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time. Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. It's certainly been a night to remember. It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister. I'm sorry, Iris. I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to be your sister. What, really? Oh yes, without question. So you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw a Runo to the floor? Oh yes, of course. It would be my pleasure. Hey, you didn't have to agree quite so readily. Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's gonna be my big sister, you can be my big brother if you want, Runo. Yes, of course, if you'll have me, I'll gladly be. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Right, I'm gonna work extra hard for tomorrow now. Because for my big brother and sister. What's all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what? Hee. You'll just have to wait and see. Oh. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my best, of course. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths while posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Jigoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I'd been plunged to an even greater darkness all of a sudden. At the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. Alright, it's been about 3 hours, so I think this is a perfect time to hold it off. And next time we're going to conclude the game, hopefully. And then we'll be starting on the birthday special I have planned. I'm not sure if it's going to be long or short. It's definitely a game that has variants. Oh, you'll see when I start it. But for next time, we're going to find out the truth behind the Reaper, the truth behind all these political things, and the truth behind everything we've been working towards so far. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Hope you had a good time. I save my VODs for as long as Twitch allows. If you ever need them, they'll be there. Or if you want to see some of my older VODs, you can find a link to my YouTube channel and my About page here on Twitch. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.